live in the Empowered Mom Studios, and my voice is a little tiny bit scratchy today because I did just record several masterclasses in a row. I have only a few weeks left before my studio goes dark, and then I'm stuck in the bedroom again unless something changed, like I ended up moving and had my own studio. But this is my living room, so it turns back into the kids' hangout as soon as they get out of school. Anyway, I was thinking today, I had a couple interesting dreams, and my love was actually in it, and it was pretty awesome. But at one point, I dreamed that I was watching a show, and this really flighty, awesome, bubbly person, this woman was basically, she had infiltrated a mafia family where they were all super serious, and she had just won their hearts, and she was actually more powerful than the guy that she was marrying. And I mean, I just kind of said something to my true love because he was beside me in this dream, and I'm like, oh, it's like us, it's like me when I come in and I'm like this bubbly person. And it was cute. Anyway, it got me thinking, so I went on to ChatGPT, and I went down a rabbit hole because I'm like, okay, now I'm curious. What if it's not as people think? What if the villains are actually the heroes? And what if the PR that's being done is really just because they're so sovereign and so powerful? Because, there's certain organizations or certain people that don't play by society's rules. And I'm very much into bending the rules, especially with my own system. The empowered birth method is all about getting the birth you want without having to fight, beg, or compromise. It's about taking your power back, no permission needed. It's about becoming an empowered mom for life and living your life for yourself and letting your kids live their own authentic truths. And I mean, I've just had a very interesting background. So I also am a history buff, as you've probably seen some of my other videos when I talked about Elizabeth Woodville and what a mess she made, that Edward IV, he just fell in love with her, and he's like, I don't care that she is a widow. I don't care that she's not a virgin queen, but she is actually a woman from a noble family and actually the side of our enemies, but I'm going to make her my queen, and I'm going to have children with her. And they had many children together. So obviously that was a very loving partnership. And also, I mean, she was a widow. He fell for a widow. Usually they made those into mistresses, not queens. So I'm really fascinated by the power dynamics. And there's another one that I was thinking, because I'm thinking about the mafia, of course. I'm thinking about gangs and basically sovereign organizations. And I'm also what about the Borgias? So I went down another rabbit hole. And Lucrezia Borgia was someone that I kind of was very fascinated by. First of all, she loved her children, and she had lots of them. She also had been notorious as someone who was in a position of power, and she had also been somebody that might have had a dark streak. It's kind of fascinating. Now, in addition to that, there's also the rumors that she committed incest with her father and her brother. Another powerful woman who was accused of this was Anne Boleyn. And then Elizabeth, Anne Boleyn's daughter, couldn't exactly be accused of incest. I mean, her dad and her brother were both dead. But what they could do was say that she was probably not actually a woman, but a man. Now, this is the thing that kind of makes me curious. It's first of all, you're trying to discredit the queen that you didn't actually want to be queen because you wanted a dude on the throne. And now you're saying that, oh, actually she's a man? Isn't that what you wanted in the first place, was for a man to rule? Wasn't that the whole thing? And now you're trying to use it to discredit her? But it really got me thinking about the labels that we put on women and how stories are written, our history, our PR. And I came to the conclusion, as I was going through all these powerful icons, including actresses, and the stories and how people would get slandered, like Marilyn Monroe, and how a lot of them would play up a ditzy stereotype, and then they would be told that they were a temptress, and then when they got too powerful and couldn't be controlled, suddenly they'd be dragged through the mud, or they would even be, well, you know, they'd be executed, or their deaths would happen under very suspicious circumstances. And often it would be in a way that would make them seem unhinged, or that they took their own life, or that they overdosed on drugs or something else, right? But what if that's not it? I mean, there's been a lot of powerful women now that have been speaking out after years and years of silence. Even women that had once been seen as ditzy or like just overly promiscuous, and really that's not their story. That's just what the media said. That's just what a lot of PR said. But the truth is that they were actually seeing behind the curtain. They maybe saw too much, and they weren't willing to play the game to be quiet. They weren't willing to play the game of giving up their, well, it's like Galinda. It's really like Galinda when you think about it. It's also like in Game of Thrones. There's Marjorie Tyrell and there is Olenna Tyrell. Olenna Tyrell is not willing to play the game. Marjorie agrees to play the game because, of course, she's got that crazy mother-in-law with Queen Cersei, and they're dealing with the High Sparrow, who is basically the idea of the church. And she's trying to protect her brother. So Marjorie Tyrell is basically, she had been imprisoned by Queen Cersei, and Queen Cersei had been like, this woman is like promiscuous and awful, and we need to get rid of her. She's a threat to the power. And Olenna Tyrell, of course, was like, I was good. I was very good. I was able to rise to power. It's no accident that they happened to have the sign of the rose, and it got me thinking. And I was playing with ChatGPT. ChatGPT even looked at the fact that I came from a family where you were supposed to be the good girl. You keep the house clean, you act as a good mother, you don't make waves, you don't question things, you don't talk too much, you always show up decent with your hair done and your makeup done, you don't bite your nails and chew them to bits and pieces because you want to have nice nails, right? And you need to also have your hair done and have that decent. You don't want to have your hair a mess. Always leave the house with your hair brushed perfectly. And don't wear something too revealing. You don't want to be attracting attention. You want to be a good girl. And I just remember after finally setting myself free, because I got into a relationship when I was 23 years old, and my family was probably like, thank goodness she's finally going to settle down. She's no longer going to be her wild child self that we have been trying to rein in since she was 16 years old. Now, I wasn't chasing boys, but I did follow the idols of Christina Aguilera and Britney Spears and Spice Girls. And I was in the time of sexy is power. Sexy is like basically like not allowing the patriarchy to control. And then that even got turned against us at certain points. But I grew up with Sex in the City. I grew up in the 90s. So for me, I was dressing for myself. I was dressing to feel sexy and in my power. And at the same time, I would look at the boys, the guys in my age bracket, and I'd be like, ew, no. Like, no. Like, I don't care. You think I'm hot? That's great. But, ew, no. So, I mean, people are constantly saying this, that women are pickier nowadays than they were in the past. And actually, no. No. It's just that there was different PR back then. So we still did these things. It's just often it was behind closed doors. And the ones who were branded the slut, most often they were just a little bit more comfortable in their sexuality, but they were also recognizing, I'm not going to just sleep with anyone. But when you're branded the slut, sometimes that is done to try to diminish your power. And I realize that now because all through high school, I was branded the slut, even though I was a virgin until I was almost 18 years old. And I was very selective even after that. I mean, there were a few people that I do regret. And at the same time, that was after people told me to lower my standards because I wouldn't be able to get the kind of man that I know I can get now. The one that is like, when I saw my true love, and I was like already turning 35. I'm like, where were you? Like, seriously, I've been dreaming about you since I was 16 years old. And now you show up? Now, after I already had this partner that I settled for? And oh boy, did I let that bar drop to the floor. That would be like if Belle had stayed in the village instead of going to the enchanted castle, and the beast had somehow turned into a prince in a different way, or she stumbled upon him later in life after settling down with Gaston for several years, popping out several kids, and then being like, wait, I could have gone to this enchanted castle. When my dad went missing, I didn't have to settle for being taken care of by this ogre of a brute who, yeah, now he used to be handsome, but, you know, it's been several years and all those pints of ale have gone to him and he's no longer the virile man and he's just bitter because he's not young and attractive anymore. Meanwhile, those bimbettes that I looked down upon, they actually managed to attract much better for themselves because they finally gave up on Gaston. And actually, like, damn, I could have gone to that magic castle and been with that beast, but he would have turned into a prince and then I would have been a queen? Damn! That's how I felt. That's how I felt. Because I was the wild rose, and ChatGPT had even said it. It's like, no, you were the wild rose in this garden, this perfectly curated garden where everybody was supposed to stay in their place and they were all supposed to dress a certain way and act a certain way, and you came in right when you were a little girl, and you were the child who wouldn't keep clothes on. You'd run around in your diaper and then in underwear, and then like that was until I was 8 years old. My daughter does the same. And I've finally gotten her to start wearing clothes. I'm like, okay, now you're 9, you need to. But I never shamed her for it. I would put it in the context of, honey, aren't you cold? Aren't you actually cold? No? Okay. Well, there's still boundaries within you doing this, but I'm not going to shame you and make you wrong for it because you're a free spirit. You can do as you like. But in certain situations, you will need to put on clothes because we can't do it for everything. And I was also told that I wasn't allowed to speak up if I'd overhear grown-up conversations, because let's be honest, they had their coffee chats right in the same room that I was playing and coloring and just doing my own thing. And I'd hear some of the conversations and I would try to be part of it and I would talk and they'd be like, no, you weren't supposed to hear that. How am I not supposed to hear it if I'm in the same room? I mean, with my daughter, I'm like, honey, you need to put on your headphones, okay? This is not something that you can be hearing right now. If you want to know more information, I will speak to you later in a more age-appropriate way than what you overheard or what you saw on TV or what you heard from somebody else. Like, I will speak to it in a different context. But she's a wild rose, and I'm letting her bloom. I was the wild rose that was basically told, you need to get back in the garden and you need to not be so thorny and you need to be a lot more pristine in your presentation. And I'm like, no, I'm just going to grow where I want to grow. I know I'm not supposed to be here, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I have just been like, I don't care. So then the other method of it, though, is the Queen of Thorns. Because a powerful woman can be a thorn in the side of organizations and family systems that want to keep everything curated and pristine, and you don't talk about that. We don't talk about Bruno. No, 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 Mirabelle. We do not do that. We do not question the system. The system works perfectly as long as everybody's in their role, as long as nobody speaks their trauma, the system works perfectly. You're the reason that Casita is falling apart. It's not the fact that actually it's the trauma that's going unspoken. No, you're the problem. You're the scapegoat. You need to be better. You need to be more palatable. Be like this person. Be like this person. And so I recognized the more I become myself again, the more I reclaim those pieces of myself that I was told was too much or not enough, the more I started thriving as the wild rose. The wild rose is not without her thorns. The wild rose can protect herself when she needs to. She can also grow in places where maybe other flowers wouldn't be able to really survive because they're used to more manicured environments. The wild rose is beautiful just because she exists. And even if she happens to be seen as a Queen of Thorns, it's like the wild rose is dangerous. You don't want to touch the wild rose because if you touch it, it's going to actually sting you and hurt you. Not if you handle it properly. Not if you actually appreciate the wild rose and notice that actually those thorns are really just her protection. And if you take care of her properly, she's not going to hurt you. She's just existing in her elements. And that just got me thinking about how many women in the past, I mean, just pick one, Lucrezia Borgia or Anne Boleyn, or, I mean, Elizabeth Woodville probably had this too, where she was probably seen as a Queen of Thorns, especially in the side of the organization that wanted Edward under their control. Any woman that inspires a man to go against what others want him to do and to follow his own path is a thorn in the side of those that wanted to control that man. And any woman who is out there flourishing and no longer feels like any shame or guilt in being who she is an absolute threat to the idea of trying to stay demure and not make waves and to not basically dismantle the system. So you see this with actresses where they are basically slammed and called all sorts of names. Taylor Swift has just taken that and owned it. But also Rihanna too. I mean, she had some pretty awful things that happened to her. Like with the whole thing with Chris Brown. But she took that and she used it as medicine. Love the Way You Lie. There was a lot of controversy when that song came out because it's like, wait a minute, she's glorifying the domestic violence. I don't think that's what she was doing. I think because I listened to that song, especially when I was deep in that trauma bond with my ex, that song spoke to me on such a visceral level, and it actually helped me break free because I'm like, oh, yeah. Like, just watch me burn. But it's like, do I really want to keep burning? Because the other side is so violent. The way that song was done was absolutely brilliant. And then, of course, Rihanna being branded a certain ways, like overly promiscuous. Oh, she owned it, didn't she? I may be bad, but I'm perfectly good at it. Sex in the air, I don't care how to love the smell of it. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but chains and whips excite me. Like, seriously, when you think about it, our sexuality is used against us, right? Our feminine power is used against us, and it's perverted. But then I also went a little bit further with this. Now, I'm not religious, so I don't know everything there is to know about the Bible, and I let the ones who actually understand and were indoctrinated and broke free speak on that topic. But like, there's a woman I'm following right now who is teaching on that, but it's basically if women in 2025 were reading this, and there's a lot of incest in that. And I'm sitting and I'm like, okay, so the church basically with Pope Alexander and Lucrezia Borgia and everybody, like, they're like, okay, we're going to demonize this family. But what if, just hypothetically, what if they were really just too close to dismantling something, and that Lucrezia Borgia was actually doing something very strategic, and in order to destroy that family, they had to discredit her so that then it would implicate her brother and it would implicate her father. What if Cesare was either non-binary, or he was maybe bisexual, maybe he really was, and he wasn't really into women at all, maybe, but how do you discredit a man? Well, you attack his masculinity, right? So if they attack somebody by saying, oh yeah, no, you're doing your sister, that in itself is now, oh my gosh, horrible in that context. And then I asked another question, like, but wait a minute, don't they have that in certain texts that they were pushing on people and having that narrative? Why is it empowering for a man, but suddenly disempowering if it's now on the woman? Why is the woman being punished here? Why are they using that when it's sanctioned within their own texts? Well, again, because it's all about context. So, the question is, when we're looking at powerful women, powerful, inspiring women, and suddenly they're being dragged through the mud, or the men attached to them are being dragged through the mud, what's really going on? Now, it could be possible that they were actually putting on a false face and that they really are horrible. But you also need to look at who's pointing the finger. After all, what can we learn about the Salem witch trials? There's a bunch of powerful women who had property. It was elderly women who had property and no husband. And so they wanted the land. What's the easiest way to get that? Oh, well, they tell the whole world, well, this woman who is outside of society and doesn't really conform to our values and has this land that we want and she won't sell it to us, well, now she's a witch. Now we can take her land. This man in power is upsetting our entire organization. They are not able to be controlled. And this woman seems to also have way more of a voice in their marriage than she should have. We don't like it. We don't like that his wife is this powerful. So we're going to slander his wife and destroy her utterly so that either he turns against her or he has no choice but to surrender to our power so that we'll let up. But if he's like, I can't do anything, my hands are tied. You know, Henry VIII actually went to great lengths with Anne Boleyn's execution. He didn't just have anybody do it. He went to great lengths to hire somebody who could do it cleanly. He went to great lengths to hire somebody who would do it so that she wouldn't feel as much suffering and pain or fear. And that in itself shows an act of love. What if it's not really what we think? What if the history books were written, well, we know they're written by the victors, were written by the people who chose to write the story. But what if there's more to it? When you're looking at any powerful figure, you really need to ask, what more is there to it? And you know, people take their masks off all the time, and you can see that. And it's usually when they're under pressure that they take their masks off. And I think in that moment, with Henry VIII being under so much pressure by the church, by his people, because they all believe that Anne Boleyn is this witch. They all believe that Anne Boleyn is this evil temptress who slept with her brother. They all believe it. It got the testimonials from people under torture and, probably some bribes and incentives, and people that just didn't like Anne Boleyn because she had kind of allowed Henry to break from the church when they wanted to keep him controlled and he was not controllable. Well, you get to a point, it's like, I don't know what to do. Like, I can't even go into exile because, I'm the king. Who else is going to take over? I've got nobody else that can take over. So, I really have no choice here. But he still went to those great lengths to allow her a dignified death. Even at that level. And it's heartbreaking when you think about it. If you really had to choose, in order to further a mission, you had to choose. But that's the pressure that people are under. Now, the other one is they could also drag somebody through the mud and be really, really vindictive about it. And it's like, well, they challenged me, so I'm going to get them back. I mean, I know people like that. You disrespected me, or I feel disrespected by you. So I'm going to treat you with 10 times more disrespect because now you finally have given me an excuse. I have been waiting and waiting and waiting for the excuse to unleash everything on you. Absolutely everything. And now you're going to actually get a lesson. I'm going to drag you so hard. The only difference is that I knew that I could see the worst in those certain people. And I'm like, do your worst. Go ahead. Tell the world that I'm crazy. Try to get to my children. My children know the truth. My children will never, ever trust anybody false because they are their full, authentic selves. You go ahead. Get on my social media. Comment on my videos. Try to tear me down. I can delete those comments or I can leave them up and then shine light but block you. I can let others see what's going on behind that mask that you wore. Thank you for that. That's a receipt. There's your true face. I saw it. I can't unsee it now. I was waiting for you to unleash that on me. Thank you for showing me that. I was waiting. I was wondering. I kind of had that indication that maybe you weren't as supportive as you pretended to be. And now I know the truth because when I set that boundary with you, this is what you do with it? Really? Okay. Well, now here's my counter move. Here's how I protect myself. Because I'm the wild rose, I know when to use my thorns. I know where to grow. I know where to hide. I know when to come out in full bloom. And I am unstoppable. I'm the Queen of Thorns. I will grow strong. I will be powerful. One thing I love about Game of Thrones in season 7 is Olenna Tyrell. She's lost everything. Her legacy, her granddaughter had decided to try to play the game. How did that turn out for Marjorie? She's like, we have to go. And the High Septon, the Sparrow, is like, nope, we're not going anywhere. And she's like, Cersei is not coming to this trial that you keep saying that she's going to atone for her sins. She's up to something. We need to go. And he's like, no, it's fine. The gods will answer. We'll drag her from the thing. It's like, you're not listening. She's not here. Like, something is seriously wrong. Tommen is not here. Cersei is not here. Nobody that supports Cersei is here. And what happens? Wildfire. up in flames. But before that happened, Marjorie had basically shown Olenna Tyrell, it's like, I'm still here. I'm still me. I'm just pretending to be under this influence, but I'm still me. Grandma, you need to get out of here. You need to get out. You need to get back to Highgarden. Go back. I'll be fine. Olenna Tyrell is like, okay, my granddaughter's gone. My grandson's gone. My entire legacy is gone. It's just me. My son is gone because he was in that courtroom too. It's just me. I'm going to ally with Daenerys Targaryen. I'm going to tell her to be a dragon. Don't be somebody else. Be a dragon. You need to fight. You need to be strong. Now, she didn't expect Daenerys to go crazy, and that's a whole other thing. I can actually understand why Daenerys went that way. And, you know, it's just that they fast-paced the series. And I could just understand it because I know the dark side of things. So then you get into the idea where she's like, Olenna's about to be murdered. Like she's being executed. And Jaime, again, showing his true colors, he's seen as the villain, but he's really not. Because he is the one that convinced Cersei to not destroy Olenna the way that Cersei wanted to destroy Olenna. So he's like, okay, well, I managed to convince her to give you a poison that is quick acting, and you'll just die quickly in dignity. That's your surrender. And she's like, okay, well, that's wonderful. And she takes it. She's like, you know, I never actually saw that poison before. The other one, gasping, turning purple, and clawing at my neck. I'd never seen it work before. Tell Cersei I want her to know it was me. Because she was the one that poisoned Joffrey. But what are you going to do? Olenna has already taken the poison. She'll be dead in a few seconds. But she has now confessed that it was her who got rid of Joffrey. And good riddance to him, after all. When Olenna had seen just what a monster he was by asking Sansa what kind of monster he is, she formulated her plan, and she got Marjorie into power. It just didn't work out because it's George R. R. Martin's universe, and when you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die. He had his plan. He knew who was going to take the throne. It was the most unassuming character at the end, or was it? You see, you just have to understand that the real power is not the strength, the brawn, the fear. It's in the cunning. It's in the ability to thrive and to grow strong, like the wild rose, like the Queen of Thorns. Like Marjorie Tyrell, if she had actually been able to get past the septum, and if she had figured it out just a little bit sooner and got away from the High Sparrow and been like, something is wrong, I got to get out of here, I got to take my brother out, and you know, the rest of them, if they're going to be stupid, okay, but at least I'm surviving. But that's not how it went down. The more you understand, the more you also question. When a woman is being dragged through the mud, particularly a celebrity or an influencer or somebody in a position of power, anybody in history is dragged through the mud, being accused of horrible, horrible things, like, ew, incest, really? But again, I don't believe that that's actually true. I bet that there were different accounts at that time, and they were just scrubbed or hidden. I'm sure that there are also secrets that we could uncover if we question things a little more. Were these women actually horrible? Or were they just too powerful to be controlled? Were these men who were aligned with these powerful women actually really horrible? Or were they just so powerful to be controlled, and too powerful already on their own to be controlled, and then they were told to marry somebody else, and then they rejected that path, And then they had an affair with the one that they were actually inspired by, their muse, and then their muse was dragged through the mud. And they had to either let her go, or they both were dragged through. Because Edward IV died first. Then Elizabeth Woodville had to basically continue the line. She had to figure something out. Her sons were gone. The princes in the tower were gone. She had her daughter. Another wild rose. Literally, a wild rose, a white rose. There was the white rose and the red rose of the House Tudor and the House York. And so they were joined together. And then they were the grandparents of Elizabeth. They were the parents of Henry VIII. Henry VIII is the one that rose to power. Not his brother. He did. And he had married Catherine of Aragon out of a sense of duty, and maybe he did actually love her at one point, but she wasn't able to inspire him the way that he wanted to be inspired, because he was resisting the powers that be that controlled everything. So question history a little bit more. It's a fascinating rabbit hole. And you could play with ChatGPT on it. I mean, I've just had a blast with ChatGPT. Anyway, it's 111 now, and I have been talking for quite a bit, because like I said, I had those master classes. So I think I'm going to rest. My daughter is with me this weekend. My son is going with his dad. They're doing a special project, young entrepreneurs thing. My son has got these resin keychains that he's going to be selling at his middle school. And it's like part of, I guess the middle school is teaching kids how to be entrepreneurs now. Because entrepreneurial skills are really important in what is coming in the future. And I'm all for this because, of course, I've got the entrepreneur skills and I can add to it. And this is just my jam. So when the teacher is like, can you help him with his project? I'm like, oh yeah, this part I can do. Like, this is awesome. This is fun for me. But, so he's gone. My daughter's going to be with me. It's probably going to be a nice quiet weekend. But, if I received a message and somebody wanted to meet up, I could probably make arrangements, or it could always happen during the week too. I mean, I can always rearrange my schedule. I do have several classes I still need to teach. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, I could probably get away with 6 or 7, but I don't have to. If I have up until September 10th, then if things were aligned and I moved out of this place and I suddenly had my own space over the summer, then my studio wouldn't have to be dark and I wouldn't have to record as much. But you just have to decide when things are ready, right? After all, a lot of fun could be had if things were aligned, and it is summertime and it is sundress season, and I love this sundress. So I'm going to probably be suntanning if it gets warm and sunny later. Playing my Sims sounds like fun because, I really like to go into my fantasies, and I'm definitely going to dive down more rabbit holes. So you just decide what you want to do this weekend, okay? I love you, and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. May you be able to catch some sun and go after your dreams too, because, there's some special magic that's happening right now. I feel it. I mean, I felt quite a bit this morning just before I woke up. So I know something big is coming around the corner. Maybe it's already on its way. Maybe the window is open. And maybe, just maybe, something's going to fly inside that's going to just give me all of my dreams. I don't know. Or a door will open and someone will appear. I don't know. I guess I'll just be surprised, huh? And I love my surprises. So, anyway, I love you. Have a wonderful day. And I will see you soon. Namaste. Mwah!